Menstrual cycle, ovarian cycle, periods. What is it? Let's explain. Welcome to Hormones and Health with Dr. Heike. My name is Dr. Heike Shu. I'm a consultant endocrinologist, and today we're going to talk about the menstrual cycle. It's got many names, but this is essentially what happens during a cycle between one period to the next. So let's get into it. Start off with, let's talk about the organs that are involved. So let's start from top to bottom. From the top, we have at the base of an area of our brain, the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus releases a hormone called GnRH. Further down to that, we have our pituitary gland, and at the front of the pituitary, the anterior pituitary gland, that releases two hormones, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. And then we go down to our ovaries, where we have the production of estrogen as well as progesterone, and we have our uterus as well, which will be stimulated by all these hormones. So let's start from day one. What happens at day one of your cycle? This is when you start this is your first day of your period. At this point, there has been your estrogen progesterone levels had dropped. An egg which had been released had not been fertilized. So that sends a signal to the brain, GnRH, that we need to start stimulating the ovaries to make more eggs. GnRH will send a message to follicle stimulating hormone FSH at the anterior pituitary, and this starts to stimulate the ovaries to release follicles. Multiple follicles are released, however, only one egg is released during each cycle. So what happens? These follicles, which are essentially fluid-filled sacs, which are cysts essentially that contain our eggs, will mature. So only one will mature, and as it matures, it starts to release estrogen. Estrogen has many functions in our body, but in this case, in the menstrual cycle, estrogen has the function of stimulating our womb, the inner lining of our womb, the endometrium, to grow and thicken, getting ready for a fertilized egg to implant. So as the estrogen levels rise, the follicle stimulating hormone levels rise, it gets to a peak where the estrogen levels are at a point whereby the messages are sent back to the brain, which is saying, hang on, we have enough estrogen. So GnRH tells the other hormone, luteinizing hormone, to be released, and this is released in something called an LH surge. So that's usually around day 14, and this is usually when women may use a ovulation kit to test whether they are ovulating or not. That's what you're testing. So by day 14, usually roughly around day 14, we're now into the next cycle. So what's happened is your luteinizing hormone has been released, and this stimulates the release of the egg from the follicle, and it's released into the fallopian tube to travel down to the uterus. And this next phase, what happens is that follicle has now closed up and turned into what's called the corpus luteum, and that releases the hormone progesterone. Progesterone is vital as it's important in maintaining that inner lining of the womb to be ready for implantation. So in our next phase, we have the egg traveling from the fallopian tubes into the uterus, waiting to meet a sperm to be fertilized. However, if fertilization during that month, your progesterone levels will start to come down, and then the lining of the womb will start to shed, and that is when you get your next menstrual cycle. So that's it in a nutshell. Those are your main hormones, and hopefully that was helpful. And let's move on to the next video. We're going to talk about polycystic ovarian syndrome, what that is, ways that you can manage it.